Hey everybody, Brett from AstartesGaming here, back with another Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord developer blog video. Today we're checking out the blog for March 8th, 2018. If you're wondering where the blog video was for last week, I didn't bother because it was about camels. Yeah, camels. Anyway, this week we're looking at the engine, in fact the latest version of their engine. They're calling it 1.4. I don't know anything about 1.3 or 2 or 1, so that doesn't help me much, but hopefully they will explain it to us. So, in this week's blog, we would like to talk about the newly introduced engine version 1.4, which consists of many graphical improvements as well as a number of performance updates. We develop engine features, oops, let me keep it where you guys can see it, in separate branches with each one labeled as a version. This allows us to test new features extensively and efficiently without decreasing the stability for the gameplay programmers. So first we have Global Illumination. We introduced a new Global Illumination system to the engine which can correctly illuminate both static and dynamic objects. It is based on a pre-baked system called Pre-Computed Radiance Transfer. It is independent from the atmosphere, which is a must for a game like Bannerlord, where you will enter a scene at different times of the day. The scene saves the illumination data to probes inside a regular grid. We developed lots of automatic placement tools so that the work required by artists to bake the scenes is kept to a minimum. Modders will be able to bake GI to their own scenes using these tools. Okay, so that's cool. Lighting is always something that's very, very sort of heavy on game performance. Especially for, I mean, less so for the static stuff, definitely for the dynamic stuff. Obviously, trying to properly light and shadow something as it's moving around is a lot of computing. So next up we have, compute shader skinning. What do you know? By using profilers, we have learned that that in large-scale battles, the majority of the GPU time is spent on the skinning of agent meshes. Normally, the skinning process is repeated every time a mesh needs to be rendered. Shadow pass, G buffer pass, special passes for custom hair shading, etc. To combat this, skinning calculations of skeletal meshes have been moved from the vertex shader stage to a separate compute shader stage. Despite both stages running on the GPU, executing a separate stage for skinning and storing results in temporary memory enables us to do skinning calculations only once per frame and use special optimization mechanisms that are exclusive to compute shaders. This results in the rendering time of skinning meshes being reduced by 60%, which enables us to achieve 60 FPS in huge battle scenes on a wide range of GPUs. So that's fantastic news. One of their goals for this game was to make battles, well, first of all, not only to make the game look infinitely better than Warband, but also to expand the scope of the battles. And everything we've seen so far in the videos has definitely shown that. I think like the minimum battles we've seen are probably at least 2 or 3 times what like a maximum battle would have been in Warband or in the Warband engine. And it seems like a lot of the optimizations they're doing are really helping with that. And it's good to know that they're working on like hardware bottlenecks. For example, Kingdom Come Deliverance, a game that I really, really enjoy and have been playing a lot lately, both in my own time and on the channel, as you guys might know, is really, really CPU intensive, and most of the performance issues people experience while playing that game are just because the game doesn't utilize your CPU hardware very well. It maxes out CPU cores to the point where it can actually cause the game to like hitch and freeze. Not because your computer can't handle it, but because the game decided to put all of its eggs in one CPU core basket and max it out. And they're working to fix that. They're optimizing the game and releasing patches all the time. But it's nice to have that stuff done before the game comes out. And it looks like that's what they're doing here. So combating, bottlenecking in the GPU. I don't know too much about this stuff specifically they're doing, but I mean, if it's cutting rendering times or skinning times by 60%, that's pretty substantial. So Particle Shading Atlas, whatever that means. Particles are now shaded in a separate compute shader stage. Well, particles and particle shading, that's like when you have like an explosion, the sort of effect that comes off that, or say if you had like a sword with like a flaming magic effect on it, those are particle effects. And so those are always very difficult to do because often they involve a lot of little things moving around, as well as like transparencies and stuff like that. They usually have some sort of glow effect with them, so there's a lot of things that go into just that little, like fire thing happening on screen. Anyways, they're now shaded in separate compute shader stage. Each visible particle is assigned a rectangular region in a big global texture atlas according to its screen space size. Shading is done on these tiny quads with a compute shader stage. During the actual rendering, we just sample the lighting results from the atlas texture and skip any complex lighting computation. Separating shading and drawing stages enables us to reduce the fill rate costs of particles since the amount of shaded pixels are extremely reduced. This reduces the high GPU cost of the desert-like scenes. This technique also eliminates the sharp shadows on the particle quads, further increasing the visual quality of the already beautiful particles of Bannerlord. At this point, we feel it is important to stress the fact that while yes, we are still developing the engine and making new additions, this work is running entirely parallel to the development of Bannerlord. Our dedicated engine team are constantly striving to give us a better optimized engine which allows us to have larger battles, higher frame rates, greater visual fidelity, and faster loading times. This work doesn't hold back the development of the game in any way, shape, or form, and will ultimately improve the overall quality of the product. So I have to say this like every time I make a Mount & Blade developer video when they mention anything regarding the engine. A lot of people have this like thought in their head that this game is being developed the way like a AAA game would be developed. So the engine team is building an engine for a game while the asset team is, working on assets for another game, and the concept art team is drawing up something new. No, this developer is not a AAA developer. Their team is fairly small. They're all working on Bannerlord all the time. So that means that even if the engine were good enough, the engine team would have nothing else to do if they stopped working on it. So what they're doing is while the rest of the game is being finished, they're continuing to optimize and improve their engine with all the time that they have. Now, yes, we'd all like the game to be out sooner rather than later, and if it was good enough, I think most of us would want to go ahead and play it anyways. But if the game's not going to come out because of other features that aren't complete, then why not take that time to continue improving the engine, especially if it's going to allow people with older hardware that may not be able to play most modern games on their PC. If it's going to allow them to not only play Bannerlord, but play it in decent visual quality and, epic battle sizes. Because, a lot of computers can play Warband. I have a really high-end computer, and I still don't get particularly great performance out of it, though, because the engine is kind of a disaster. It's a real hot mess. And again, I'm running really nice, fairly new hardware. The computer's only a year and a half old, and I built it myself. And with all the weird stuff in the engine, I can't run the battle sizes that big because it's not that my computer can't handle it, the game can't handle it. And this game, hopefully, will not have that issue. It doesn't seem like it. We've seen massive, massive battles thus far. Of course, they're playing it on, dev computers, which are going to be very high-end because that's what they do. They make and play video games. But, yeah, I think this is great news for everybody, but also especially the people with older systems that otherwise wouldn't be able to necessarily play this game or would have to play it super limited in terms of graphics and battle sizes. This means that they might be able to play it at max battle sizes now, or run the graphics on very high rather than low, or maybe at least medium or just regular high. We have a video, so I guess we'll do like a video in video thing here, and I'll kind of just talk about my thoughts as we go. I've already watched this. It's just going to show the difference in shading with and without Global Illumination. So I'm going to mute it, and we'll just watch it in window like this. But the difference is pretty staggering. I was actually really impressed. The first shot looks, you know, good enough, but then when you see it with the Global Illumination added, it's a vast improvement. So the game looks fine right here. Maybe a little bit washed out, and so you can see when they add the Global Illumination, the stone walls especially really pop. The depth from that contrast shoots out, whereas, you know, before they look completely flat. And in here they're sort of passing time, and when they add in the Global Illumination, you can really see it again on the stonework. So let's see. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with this is obviously the blacks are truer. The whole thing looks less washed out, and anything with any sort of like real texture to it definitely pops more with this. This is probably a great shot just because of all that stone. You can really see it stand out. Like here it looks almost flat. It just looks like a, you know, a flat texture with some rocks and grout on it. But when they add this in, you almost feel like you can see the indents and stuff in the stone. And it's a pretty substantial difference. Here we get to see some interiors, and look at the difference there. It went from pretty much constant lighting all the way throughout to like very moody lighting inside there, and then very light out in the open. So that's pretty cool. And I'm really impressed. If these are the types of buildings that like lords are going to be sitting in when you go to visit them at their, you know, castles or whatever, it's going to be pretty cool. Imagine having one of those to yourself when you own your own castle or town. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I had a great time talking about some Bannerlord with you, and I look forward to seeing you guys back here for the next episode.